attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
Welcome everybody, my name is Alan and I'm joined by
Peter.
Hope everybody's doing well, hope everyone's doing okay in COVID,
Yeah.
in whatever form of lockdown you might be finding yourself in whatever part of the world.
Yeah.
Thankfully here in New South Wales of Australia, it's not too strict.
No, it's not too bad. We can still go to the pub, that's pretty much the main thing, let's be honest.
Even perhaps more importantly than the pub, you and I can get together and record some podcast episodes.
This fantastic podcast.
Great news. And today we're going to be discussing great travel movies.
Thought it'd be a good topic for current times if you got some time to kill.
You got some real itchy feet and you're hanging to get back out there on the road, but you can't given the current climate of this pandemic.
Live vicariously through some films.
What better way to get your fix than watch some travel films? Either films that inspire you and get you excited to travel to new destinations, or perhaps bring back some good memories, reminisce on some places that you've been and you can spot them in movies. And so we're going to go through Pete and I's list of some of our favourite movies and why. And also, we've had a lot of great people write into us on the socials and give us their hot tips for their favourite travel movies and why. So to kick it off, Pete, give us your number one favourite travel film.
That's going to have to be a bit cliche, but I think The Beach is probably one of my favourite travel films, if not my favourite travel film.
Do enjoy that film, have seen it a few times myself.
Yeah.
That is with Mr.
DiCaprio.
LDC, they call him these days.
Do they?
Apparently that's his cute nickname. Brad Pitt called him LDC at one of the film awards.
Oh,
that's his new acronym. Yeah. Okay. I'm up with it.
Far out.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'll ever be cool enough to have an acronym.
Maybe.
Probably. PC,
but that doesn't really work because you're not very PC. So
no, I'm far from it.
It's ironic.
Maybe. Oh, clever. I like it.
So tell us about The Beach, a quick synopsis. What's the breakdown of The Beach, the film?
It's about a guy who goes to Thailand and he's looking to find the off-the-beaten-track utopia, I guess, trying to get away from the hustle and bustle of, crazy Thailand. I don't really want to give away any spoilers, but come on, have you really not seen The Beach by now?
I figure most people who are interested in travel have watched this film. But it is a great film. It's got a lot of escapism, fantasy. It's got a lot of drama and adventure in it. Obviously, they have to overcome a few hurdles. And then when they get to the island, there's a lot of drama going on there.
Yeah.
There's action in that there's a shark attack. There's a love angle. There's romance going on. There's the conflict between the people who look after the island, look after the marijuana crops on the island, and the hippie village living there. And
does it bring up the idea of, is utopia really a thing?
It is. I guess it plays on that idea that they find what they think is.
They think they find
the ultimate nirvana.
Yeah.
Perfect situation, living on a tropical island with fields and fields of marijuana and no job and just all play.
Living the dream.
But
But are they?
There's trouble in paradise.
There's trouble in paradise.
In the form of a shark and a angry leader of the tribe, and it all kind of comes crashing down in the end.
Goes a bit pear-shaped in the end, doesn't it?
It's a great film, yeah. I think that it resonates because not only is there this idea in a lot of people's head that when we travel, we're looking for that kind of perfect, idyllic utopia, but also that it's set in Thailand, which is one of the most heavily visited, tourist-visited countries in the world.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the time when people go to Thailand for the first time, they're expecting to find this utopia.
Perfect beaches, quiet, sandy, white postcard stuff everywhere, and
but a lot
unfortunately,
of the time,
it's not like that there anymore.
It's not as you maybe pictured it in your head, just like Leonardo DiCaprio's character in the film.
I guess the ironic thing as well about the film is that now that island where they filmed it, which used to be this beautiful deserted island, is now like one of the most popular tourist attractions in Thailand, which...
It is another level of irony.
Is pretty ironic.
That the movie about finding utopia away from the main drag has now become the main drag.
Yeah.
To the point where I believe that they had to close the island down for a time because it was getting too busy. There was too many boats pulling up there. The sand was washing away. There's too much trash.
Yeah, I did read something about that.
They cut it back.
It was heaps dirty.
Cleaned it up, put in some new rules about how many people can visit, and the boats going there have to bring back the trash with them. And all that sort of stuff. Yeah, there is a good line. I can't remember the exact line, but when he gets to Thailand, he has a little monologue about sort of how disappointed he is that it's not the utopia. It's a busy world of kind of dog-eat-dog world. People trying to make money, people trying to hustle you, selling you snake blood shots and, you know, cheap T-shirts on Koh San Road and trying to get you into ping pong shows and all sorts of adult clubs and all this sort of stuff, selling you drugs and whatnot. And he realizes that when he went to Thailand to try and escape the rat race and do something different and try and find this utopia, he ended up just back in a very mainstream kind of following the crowd, not really doing anything different and not finding this blissful, peaceful utopia, but being in a very busy Thailand
Nothing
setting.
different from where he came from.
I guess that setup of the story, which a lot of people who have travelled to popular destinations like Thailand or a Bali or a Hawaii or something, it's billed to you, it's sold to you as this perfect tropical, peaceful oasis. Paradise. But when you get there, it's quite different.
It's far from.
And you can be a little disappointed. Now, one of the ones I want to throw out there is one of my favourite films.
Yeah, what do you reckon your favourite is?
I'm going to go with a film called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Great film. Which
I'm sure a lot of people have at least heard of, if not watched. If you haven't watched this film, do yourself a favour. Go out and check it out. It is starring Ben Stiller. Mm-hmm. Great
Who
actor.
I normally don't... I'm not a big fan of Ben Stiller stuff.
Not normally a fan?
He always does these, like, films. Don't get me wrong, Zoolander, incredible. But
the best.
He always does these films, I feel, where like he plays the same dude where like absolutely everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong, and then at the end it all sorts itself out. The end. It took me a while to watch this film actually because of like my Not My Love and heaps of people were like, watch it, it's good. And
when you see him playing a more serious role and not
he's good.
A full-on comedy character,
slapstick, like you say. Yeah,
it takes you a while to kind of be like, okay, Ben Stiller's playing a real-life normal character. And it's not a comedy film at all. There's some semi-funny bits in it, but it's not a comedy. It's a small adventure. There's a little bit of adventure film. Yeah. There's a little angle of a romance in there, but it's definitely not a rom-com or anything like that. No. And he goes on this adventure, an adventure that he doesn't really want to be on. He kind of just falls into it. And there's a little bit of mystery in it, trying to find the photographer and find the missing photo. That's the whole kind of crux of the film. He's trying to find this missing photo for the magazine that he works at, Time magazine. And he ends up on this wild adventure. And I guess something that people can resonate with is that he is quite a conservative character, bit of a no man rather than a yes man, doesn't like to go out of his comfort zone. He's kind of nervous, he gets apprehensive, he gets anxious, and then all of a sudden something kind of like just snaps in him and he decides to jump on a plane and go and try and find the photographer. Ends up in Greenland and then ends up in Iceland trying to track down this photographer, and then ends up in the stands somewhere on the border of like Asia and the Middle East.
I can't remember which one it is.
Trying to track him down, maybe in like the Himalayas, up in the mountains or something somewhere in the like Central Asia. He goes on this adventure to some beautiful spots, and the cinematography, the scenery, the landscape stuff in that film is kind of what stands out and kind of draws on the love of travel, because you see these beautiful landscapes of Greenland and Iceland in particular, and you're like, damn, that looks good.
That stuff is like so picturesque.
Beautiful.
Like
you're like, I want to go there. Yeah. So it brings on that travel envy.
Urge. Yeah.
So for anyone who hasn't been to Greenland or Iceland, they watch it and go, damn, Greenland and Iceland are beautiful. I want to put that on my list. And for anyone who has been there and knows how beautiful it is, it's kind of cool. It brings back a lot of... Exactly. Brings back a lot of great memories. And on top of that, it's a great film, great storyline, great cinematography, great acting by Ben Stiller.
Yeah, he is good in it.
And then at the end, the kind of whole crescendo of looking for the photograph, thinking that it was of a landscape or an animal, because the photographer is a famed photographer. I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but at the end, when Ben Stiller's character finally sits down and looks at the cover of Time magazine, the photo, the cover photo that he was chasing down the whole movie, the whole point of the movie, and when he finally sees the cover photo, pretty strong moment. Yeah. I'm sure it has brought a few people to tears when they see,
no doubt,
all round, really good film.
It is a great film.
Lots of great travel elements in it. So it's not only one of my absolute favorites. So shout out to Ashley, who wrote in and suggested The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And the reason for it was this escapism that we all dream of.
Yeah, well, it's a good one.
Which is
and we all do dream of it, especially right now.
There was someone else maybe who also... Yeah, shout out to Lukey Seagal.
Hey, Lukey.
Hey, Luke. Thanks for writing in and also putting your 10 cents. Your 10 cents?
10
2
cents. Whoa.
He's rich. He's a rich guy.
He's a baller. He definitely goes to all you can eat.
He wrote in and suggested Walter Mitty as one of his favorite travel films as well. So thanks, Luke.
On your Lukey.
Pete, have you got a number two? Number two favorite film for travel?
Two. I like the film Wild about with Reese Witherspoon about a lady who hikes the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail.
A lot of people sometimes call it the Pacific Coast Trail.
Oh, really?
PCT, yeah. Sometimes if I'm in a mood to like show off that I think I'm smart and I think I know more than them, I'll be like, I'm sorry. It's the Pacific Crest Trail, not the Pacific Coast Trail. Oh, I didn't know that. Another time you just
whatever,
let it pass.
Because you're not petty that day.
Yeah, I wasn't in need of an ego stroke that day. I was feeling confident enough in myself that I didn't need to correct someone to make myself feel better and belittle them.
So, yeah. Which, to be honest, it's mean, but it works. It
happens. I'm not perfect.
No, nobody is.
I'm only human.
Don't worry. But a really good film, and I think it's a pretty like inspiring film for some people maybe who are a bit like afraid of travel. It's someone who goes way out of her comfort zone to do something pretty difficult, to be honest, and completely on her own. She comes across a lot of ups and downs and, experiences and gets through them. I think it's quite a motivational film. And again, going through beautiful landscapes, and the cinematography is really good, and the story itself is good and true. And it's a true story. I really enjoyed that film a lot. And I think it's one that you should definitely watch.
Definitely
have you seen
put it on. I have seen it. Yeah. Yep. For anyone who hasn't seen it, put it on your list. For those who have seen it, they'll know. And I think most people would agree. Great travel film.
Yeah.
Like you said, good acting, good cinematography, great story.
The storyline itself is good, and yeah.
It's just called Wild.
It's just called Wild, not to be confused with Into the Wild. Another one.
Another great film.
Another good,
which I'm sure we'll talk about.
No doubt.
So great cinematography, great acting, great premise, great story. I think a great travel movie, one thing that they all have in common is probably an inspirational angle.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it makes you want to get up off the couch and go and see and do or be like. There's definitely some sort of a motivational kick up the ass, get out there, and at least you see something in the film and then you add it to your to-do list, you put it on your bucket list.
Makes you want to do it. That makes you want to get up and go. And if you're feeling a bit like you're not, you don't have the motivation to do it, or you don't have the drive to do it, sometimes a good travel film can give you a bit of a push to
definitely.
Think,
I do want inspirational, motivational kind of angle.
Definitely.
That really underpins a lot of the best travel films.
Agreed.
Great film. So Wild, starring Reese. With a spoon.
Not with a knife.
Not with a knife or any other utensils. All right, cool. So my second favorite travel film is a classic surf film, but it also doubles as an iconic travel film as well. And the film goes by the name of The Endless Summer. For those out there who maybe are not big into surfing, probably haven't seen this. It's a bit more of a niche.
Definitely like a bit of a cult.
Yeah, mainly just surfers, but it is it's become a bit of a cultural classic. It was one of the earlier surf films ever to be made. Made, I think, in the late 60s, maybe 70s. The Endless Summer follows these two American surfers, and they basically want to go off and travel the world and chase waves, and ideally spend the entire year in the summer in their board shorts, surfing waves in warm water.
Sounds like the dream.
So they take off, and their first stop is in Africa, 28, 30-degree water on the west coast of Africa. They go down and around Africa, Southern Africa.
Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria.
They go to South Africa. They got iconic spots like Jeffreys Bay, Cape Town. Then they go on to other spots in the world. They go to Australia, French South Pacific Islands, Tahiti, believe they go into Hawaii, and whilst it is a surf film, they do go on this adventure.
Quite a lot of travel in it.
A lot of travel in it. They document these two surfers. Great film for surfing and for traveling. There's a great part of the film where they're driving through South Africa, and they're driving through a jungle area, and their little Jeep has been followed by a lion. And as surfers do, they often hang up their wetsuits to dry. And they'd left a couple of wetsuits hanging sort of out the back of their Jeep. I guess they must have forgot that they had their wetsuits hanging on the outside. And of course, they're not going to get out to take the wetsuits down when there's a lion nearby. But they're driving quite slowly because they want to get some photos and just obviously view the lion. And the lion becomes very interested in the van, and in particular is able to get close enough and snag and rip off the wetsuits.
Yeah.
And so they lose like 1.5 of their wetsuits to the lion, who's able to rip them down off the back of their van and is left tearing them to pieces and chewing on them. And I mean, sure, it's the first time the lion's ever felt
Taste
the
of
fabric of a wetsuit. Yeah. Luckily for them, unlucky for the lion, there was no human body inside the wetsuit. It was just the neoprene wetsuit material. But
and I think you're not gonna disagree with that line. You're gonna say you can
have that. I can get another wetsuit.
I'll buy another one. No dramas.
Stop,
yeah, I'm all good. Definitely. 15th of June, 1966.
1966. There you go.
Used the infamous Google
in
to
the old 60s. How about that?
That's I didn't actually realize it was that old that it
66.
released.
Well, that's what's that pushing? That's over 50 years.
Yeah.
Holy, that movie's 54 years old.
Wow, that is old.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I knew it was old, but when you put it like that,
yeah, I didn't actually realize it was that old.
That's got to be, again, it's hailed as one of the oldest classic surf films, and
for sure, it's like the OG, right?
Yeah.
Surely it's like the OG surf film.
And the cover has an iconic cover title artwork, and it is like retro neon pink and yellow.
Yeah.
And it's got one or two of the surfers got like their black silhouette, and they've got their longboards on their head
with the big sun. Is it like a sunrise or sunset?
It's a sunrise or sunset. So there's a yellow sun and then a big sort of pink orange sky. And it's all like retro neon sort of colors.
Yeah.
And that artwork and that color scheme with the black silhouette of the two surfers has been used over and over and modified because it's a bit of an iconic.
Definitely.
Color scheme and artwork that people recognize.
I reckon even if you've never seen the film, you'd recognize the...
You'd almost recognize the artwork.
Yeah, for sure.
You might not know where it comes from, but you're like, I've seen that before. That seems to get used time and time again.
It probably wasn't retro when they did it.
No, I mean, that was just the norm. That was the 60s regular norm, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The Endless Summer, classic surf film, classic travel film. Yep, add it to your list. Pete, got another one to add to the list? Favorite travel films?
We got to mention Into the Wild. I think, I mean, I do enjoy that film as well. It's a great film. Another true story about a young lad, Christopher McCandless, I think it is. He just finishes school, graduates, and decides that instead of living the normal life and getting the wife and the kids and the job and all that jazz, he decides to sell everything and get rid of everything. He donates all his money to charity. And he goes and tramps, I believe he calls it, tramping. And he walks around. I think his aim is to end in Alaska, isn't it? Basically walking and hitchhiking if he can, but I think he mainly kind of does it on his own, does he?
He does want to walk most of it.
He's all about the individualness of it. Yeah, it's a really great film, a really good story. I tried to read the book. I struggled through that a bit, but the movie itself I thought was great. It shows you the nature of the US, which is second to none. The US has got a little piece of everything, doesn't it? Every type of landscape you can think of, the US has it, and quite impressively as well, I believe.
I would agree, yeah. The landscape of the US is something else. Their national parks are amazing.
Incredible.
And the film does document some of those amazing landscapes.
I thought it was a bit strange, though. Like, he doesn't tell his parents, right? Like, he doesn't tell anybody. He just disappears. And in the story, he seems like a really nice dude, which I don't doubt he was. But I kind of think that was a bit of a dick move on his part.
It was a bit rough. It was.
Everybody who meets him says how wonderful he is and how awesome he is, and yet his folks are like at home thinking, "Where the hell's our son
worried
gone?"
About him. Yeah. He definitely did pull a bit of a Swiftie, bit of a
Houdini.
dodgy move on getting up and going and not telling anyone where he went. And
Yeah, like
he almost did it. It almost seems in the movie that he did it to punish his parents a bit. He knew that they would worry about him, and he did it on purpose.
Yeah,
It was a bit
that's
malice.
That's what I thought.
Definitely had malice in his decision to get up and go. He knew what he was doing. He was trying to inflict a bit of punishment.
Yeah.
He himself, you get he never out and out says it, but you get the feeling that he's pretty grumpy and upset at his situation and at his parents for the situation he's put him in and the pressure and expectations.
Yeah.
And so him getting up and going, whilst it was something he wanted to do, it had that element of a bit of payback as well to really make the point that they'd pushed him on paths that was more their parents' ambitions and not his.
That's what I thought as well. Like, again, it's a great film, and like the adventure behind it and the idea and the concept of it and doing it all on your own and doing it with no money and stuff is incredible. But also I was a bit like, but what about your mum and dad?
There's definitely some powerful and challenging elements in the film.
Yeah. And
the way he treats his parents in that regard, and the scene where he burns his money is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to go off traveling, go hitching, but you know that you've always got your sort of plan B.
Something
you know, always have
wrong,
a little bit of money to get you out of a sticky situation. But when you go and burn all your money and give up your car,
you've literally got your backpack and
you're really going next level on throwing it all to the wind.
Yeah, definitely.
Into the wild. Great film.
Yeah. Chuck it on your list, I think.
Chuck it on the list if you
I
haven't
reckon
seen
that's
it.
a pretty well-known one.
It's a very well-known. It's probably one of the most iconic and classic, and to the point that it's almost become maybe a little overhyped or a little too watched or a little too kind of like emulated.
Yeah, for sure.
People are like, I'm going to be like the guy. Like, I'm going to go on my find myself journey and be like the guy and into the wild and burn all my money and not tell anyone where I was and just thumb it everywhere and eat berries off the bush and hopefully not die.
Not get poison ones, yeah.
The other thing was that I believe that wherever the bus was left or the bus incident happened, I believe that original bus or a mock pretend bus, an iconic sort of a replica bus, has been put in the supposed site and has now become a tourist site. As people go to see the spot where supposedly the bus was and the guy lived. I don't know the exact details. Maybe someone out there, listeners, know better than us.
It's like in the middle of nowhere, isn't it? Like,
yeah, but supposedly it's become a
thing.
Movie.
Created its own
spin-off of a industry. Yeah, right. Its own spot.
Wow. That's quite an influential film.
Which seems to happen.
Yeah.
Well, in films at these spots. One comes to mind, another potentially great travel film, Forrest Gump.
Oh, yeah.
The part where he runs across America from shore to shore and where he's running along through the desert. He's running through the Monument Valley, which is in Arizona. It's around that area there. And he's running along and he's looking all homeless. He's got the big beard going on and the red cap. And he's got the kind of the fans behind him that are running with him, and he just suddenly stops. And they're all like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I think I'll go home now."
Pretty tired.
And that spot there is a real spot on the road with that view. Yeah, and just a spot on the road.
Literally in the middle of nowhere.
And that has become an iconic spot. You see tour buses pulled over there all the time.
Just on the side of the road.
Getting their Forrest Gump photo.
That's ridiculous.
The company I used to work for used to take busloads of people and stop at that very spot to get a photo. And then go on and see the national park.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Just turn around and go home.
Just that. It's one part of a visit to the Monument Valley National Park. But perhaps one that people look forward to the most.
I bet.
Because, of course, getting those photos for the gram.
Movies are like...
They change.
Super influential. People go far to be like, oh, I remember...
People spend their whole entire visits and holidays going to just iconic TV and movie locations. Especially in iconic cities like an LA or a London or a Sydney or a New York.
Yeah.
New York for sure.
For sure. Especially New York.
You could just rattle off so many TV and movie shows that have iconic spots in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, Friends, Seinfeld, Home Alone. I know Central Perk Cafe from Friends doesn't exist in New York.
Oh, really?
Doesn't exist.
I'm surprised they haven't made one.
I know. They've made
an
one
absolute
in
fortune.
Beijing or Shanghai.
Oh, really?
The show's huge in China.
Is it? Everybody wants to
Super
sit on the
popular.
couch,
Yep.
not in the anywhere else. Is it
Yep.
just like a cafe of couches? There's just different booths that are that set up.
They have actors around, and they have an actor like Gunter behind serving the coffee.
Do they?
I don't know. Maybe they do. Surely
That
they
would be
do.
the best if they did.
Because no one else would want to sit in any other seat but
No, but
those three couch
those
seats that
couch
they
seats.
use.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the rest of them might as well be,
If you're sitting in the other seats, you're just an extra, aren't you?
No.
You want to be
exactly.
Chandler or
People are lining up just to sit in
this.
those ones. Yeah. So that's Into the Wild. Great film.
Yeah,
Great
add
film.
it to the list, I reckon.
Yep. I'm going to throw another one out to speak in detail, and then we can go through a bit more of an extensive list a little bit quicker for people to add to their list. By the way, everyone listening out there and listening to Podcast Land, let's compile a list of these movies, both Pete and I's favourite, and we'll add in all the listeners' favourites that they commented on the socials, and we can make an extensive list of travel movies.
Slowly check them off.
And if you've got a great travel movie out there and we haven't mentioned it on this episode, please
let us know.
Get in touch. We're going to create a Facebook group.
If we haven't mentioned it and it's a great one, we might not have seen it. And I want to see it.
When we want to know.
Yeah.
So the last one I'm going to throw up for a little bit of a deep dive into is the film Euro Trip. Judging by your giggle, you've seen it.
I have seen it, yeah.
Pete, it's a great film.
Gospel, right?
It is one of the iconic, most silliest films.
Definitely a what you should do when you go to Europe. Maybe not.
It's definitely a film that you want to watch mostly for laughs.
Definitely don't take
not too much educational.
No, I would advise doing the opposite of what they do.
It does use a lot of poetic license.
It does.
It's not necessarily true to form.
A lot of stereotypes in that movie.
A lot of great stereotypes that they play on and funny things in that film. The two reasons why I bring this film up is one, that it is about travel. As the title suggests, it's about a Euro trip. A couple of Americans travel to Europe to try and find a German girl. And on their way, they get lost, they're confused, they're amateur American travelers, and they do kind of all the travel faux pas, rookie errors. They make all the common mistakes and do all the sort of tacky touristy things, and it's a great film. They travel to the UK, they travel to France, they travel to Holland, they travel to Germany, they travel to Slovakia. So they do cover off a number of countries. And yeah, it's a very stylized, stereotypical look at some of those countries. When they say that, great news, we're in Europe and they've got no drinking laws here. So they go to the pub. Of course, we know that Europe does have drinking laws.
They're a lot more relaxed than
Australia.
A lot
more relaxed in certain countries, yep. Sort of cliches, I guess, when they go to Paris, that there's mimes and robot street performers everywhere that you can get in fights with them.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen.
No.
They are true to form when there's a long lineup for the Louvre Museum.
Very accurate.
That is very accurate.
Very accurate.
Also, they're very accurate when you go to a French nudist beach, that it's full of just old dudes.
Yeah.
There's no women and no one young there. That is true to form.
I think a lot of nudist beaches are like that, to be honest.
Is that from your experience, Pete?
Oh, well, I've been to a couple and they're
been disappointing.
Yeah, they're not really what you'd hoped.
There's a couple of really far from the truth stereotypes in that film. I guess one, that when they go to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, that it is just all about smoking weed.
That's the only thing that you do in Amsterdam.
It's definitely not the only thing you do in Amsterdam.
Definitely
it's
not.
It's one of the many things
It
you
is.
do in Amsterdam. But
you can't go there and not partake.
But definitely don't go to Amsterdam for that sole reason. The other point where he says, you've got to try harder. They're trying to get a hitchhiker and say, you've got to try harder. This is Europe. They're desensitized to a lot of things. I mean, they've got juice commercials with girls with their tops off,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that does not happen. In Europe and in Germany, it was particularly referring to all the juice commercials, at least that I've seen, have women with their tops on. Okay, so probably the funniest stereotype that is so far from the truth, but really, really funny in the film, is when they go to Bratislava, the capital city of Slovakia, and it's framed in the movie to be this total derelict wasteland of grubby
grey and
people,
drab and-
the scenery, the buildings,
Yeah.
the sky. There's someone urinating in the street, and there's a dog walking around with I think it's like a hand, like a torn off
it is a
hand in
hand.
its mouth.
Yeah, I totally
And
forgot
the
about that.
streets are just like rubble, and it looks like some apocalyptic USSR kind of. Bratislava and Slovakia is not like that.
No.
Shout out to a few of my friends who are from Slovakia. Your country is amazing. It's beautiful. Bratislava is a fantastic, great, cute little, humble little city. It's beautiful. And they do have a train station. In the film, one of the great jokes is when the guy says, "Oh, how can we get out of here? Is there a bus, a train? Like, what's the best way to get out of here?" He says, "Yes. You can catch the train." He says, "Great. Where's the train station?" He says, "Oh, it's coming soon. They're building it now." I can report that Bratislava does have a train station.
Does in fact have it.
It's probably had it for a couple of 100 years already.
Yeah, I reckon it's probably been there for quite some
It's
time.
probably a pretty old train
It's probably
station. It's been there a long time. So, yes, Bratislava is not the train station-less wasteland that the film makes it out to be. But nonetheless, it is a great,
good giggle.
funny giggle travel film. Now, the other reason why I bring this film up is not just because of its travel essence, but the fact that when I worked as a tour guide in Europe, this was the go-to film that we would undoubtedly, without missing it, 100% all the time, every group would watch this film on our tours. So every 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, when I was taking a new tour, inevitably we would watch this film on the bus on one of our drive days. So not only is it a great travel film, but for me, it brings up lots of great memories of my travels, my time as a tour guide in Europe.
Yeah, right.
It was a film that we would religiously always watch on the bus when we're on a trip around Europe. And we'd have a good giggle about it and, of course, make the comparisons between the reality when we visit the cities and the spots and the stereotypical laughs in the movie. But yeah, it definitely brings back great memories of being a tour guide in Europe. I must have watched that film at least 50 times. I could probably still quote it word for word. Word for word. I do love that film. It's a great film. What else you got listing them off a little bit more now?
What about the travelling hood of the sister's travelling hood of the pants, or what's that one called? You know that one? The sisterhood,
idea.
the sisterhood of the travelling pants. I'm sure that's
Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants. Can't say I've ever heard.
You never heard of that one? Oh, that was a thing. I haven't seen
That
it.
one up.
I haven't seen that, but I'm sure it sounds like it's about travelling.
Sounds like a good one, yeah. Going through the list I've got here, Crocodile Dundee.
Classic.
Obviously, there is the initial travel within Australia in the film.
Yep.
And then when Mick Crocodile Dundee then accompanies his lady friend to New York.
Yes.
And the cultural shock that he gets when he travels to New York and the
culture shock that every person who meets Mick Dundee gets when they say, "Is this what Australians are like?"
The pickles he gets into, the "That's not a knife" quote is an
classic.
iconic movie quote from his travels to New York. Speaking of Australian films, there's another great Australian film called Tracks.
I haven't seen this.
It wasn't really a mainstream film, didn't really go to like box office sort of stuff, but I saw it at a movie cinema in Broome. It's about a woman, and this is based on a real story, who decided to walk from WA's west coast, from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, from west to east.
It's a long way.
She did it over a number of months, and she did it with having in tow 2 or 3 camels.
Okay.
Or 1 camel. 1, 2, or 3 camels. She had some camels in tow anyway. And she walked the entire way. She didn't ride the camel. She walked the entire way.
Wow.
But had a camel or 2 to carry the gear.
Oh, yeah.
Great film. Tracks. Add that to your list. Yeah.
Australia's got the highest population of wild camels in the world, don't we?
This is true. Yeah.
Which is hilarious considering they are not native to this country.
Another great film, another just silly, funny one, is a film called Road Trip. An American one where a couple of guys from a college have to travel to another college to stop a film that they accidentally filmed with a bit of risque, naughty adult scenes in it.
Bit naughty.
They had to go and rescue the film before it got in the hands of a girlfriend.
Yes.
Quite funny.
Hilarity ensues.
So it's domestic travel. They travel just a relatively short distance within the States, but that journey can be class. We can notch that up to travel.
Definitely. I mean, you can do national travel, can't you?
Easy watch, good laugh. Yeah.
Good hangover movie.
Good hangover movie. Sitting on the couch.
You don't need to think too much.
One that we haven't mentioned yet, but much loved around the world. I'm going to go on a limb here and say especially loved by the female audience.
Ooh.
But it is the film starring the delicious and delightful Julia Roberts. I'm speaking of Eat, Pray, Love. Judging by
that's all I say to that.
judging by your facial expressions, Pete, not a fan. Have you actually seen the film?
No.
You've heard of it.
I've heard of it, and when it came out, it was mental, wasn't it? Like,
it was very popular because it was on the back of the popularity of the book.
Yeah.
And like everything, a lot of people say that the book is better than the movie. The movie makes it a bit too stylized, a bit too cliche, a bit too rom-com-y. Yeah. There is some good elements in it. I did find it quite cliche and a bit too Hollywood.
Did she go to India or something?
She goes to India, I think. She definitely goes to Bali, which for me is where you lost me. And you go to Bali and pretend to get all Buddha-y and learn meditation and yoga, which has become over done.
Yeah.
To anyone out there listening, it is a overpriced, cheesy tourist trap full of mostly Australians, but also internationals.
You'll hear you'll hear just about as many Aussie accents in Bali as you will in Australia.
Yeah. Visited once, probably will never go back.
Yeah, no, not for me either. I've went there once and that was enough.
We will do, I think we could probably stretch a whole episode on Bali and how much we dislike Bali.
I could easily rant for a long time. Yeah.
And how many more better spots there are in Indonesia.
Yeah, Indonesia itself is incredible.
Let's put a pin in that one. We'll do that as an episode for sure. We touched on it already, but Forrest Gump.
Yep.
Not intentional to be a travel film, but a lot of great travel elements in it. Domestic travel, he goes to some iconic spots around the States and kind of the adventure he goes on in his life, starting in small town in Alabama. He goes to some of the bigger cities around the States. He does his run from coast to coast.
Pops over to Vietnam.
He goes to Vietnam. You don't notice it when you're watching it because that's not the point of the film.
No, it's not an actual travel film.
It's not an actual travel film, but when you look back on it and all the places he visits, it does inspire you to get up off your ass and go and kind of make the most of your life like he does.
Yeah.
And part of that is traveling. And part of the things that he learned and how he became quite an amazing person himself, how he grew, from being the shy boy with the gangly legs, was through his travel. Going to the big cities, going to Washington, going to Vietnam, meeting the president, joining the ping pong team, going shrimp boat fishing, meeting Lieutenant Dan. He goes to New York.
He's all over. That's true.
The kind of subtle backdrop to it all is his travel, along with Mama's good advice.
Always. A good shout out as well for one is not really a travel film again, but Hunt for the Wilder People.
Great film. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of about getting lost in the bush in New Zealand. So
it's got the elements of, again,
adventure,
getting up off your ass,
going out and hilarious film.
Very funny.
It is a great film for a good laugh. Good feel-good film, that one.
On my list here, I've also got a classic travel adventure film, the film series Indiana Jones.
Oh.
Now, Indiana Jones is one of the most iconic adventure films.
Definitely.
And within that is travel.
He goes all over the world, doesn't he?
All over the place to these early civilization places.
Yeah.
All these like old temples.
I think definitely the first time I ever saw Petra was in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. And ever since I saw that, and then I looked into what Petra was, and I thought that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And I wanted to go there because the first time I saw it was from Indiana Jones. And when I went there, it's probably up there as one of the best things I've ever seen, I think. It's amazing.
A majority of people's visits to the Petra site in Jordan
would be because of that film.
On the back of that film or seeing it on Instagram.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone in the last 10 years from Instagram, anyone prior to that, Indiana Jones films.
Yeah, definitely.
Shout out to a good mate of mine, Rob, English guy who I used to tour guide with in Europe. He's a lover of Star Wars, so his nickname is Star Wars Rob. So shout out to Star Wars Rob. He is a lover of adventure films, these kind of cult classics. So he loves Star Wars. He loves Indiana Jones. And I know that he purposely made a visit to Iran to go and visit some of the sites from Indiana Jones movies.
Really?
So much so that when he was there, he visited with his dad, and he had his dad film him reenacting actions and scenes from the Indiana Jones
Amazing.
movie in the spots from the movie. And he cut them all together and actually made a film, a little short film. I think he put it on YouTube, or at least he showed me it. He's got a copy of it, of him running around reenacting the Indiana Jones.
Should get him to send it to us, Will.
Yeah. I'll have to ask him where he keeps it. So it's got him going through stairs and through plazas and over walls and through deserts and up and down bell towers and stuff. He went to all these different spots and had his dad film him, and he's actually in a similar sort of jacket, and he's got like a man satchel, a little like leather bag, and
he must have the hat.
I'm pretty sure he had a hat in it.
It's like
as
the
well.
most iconic thing, right?
Knowing Star Wars Rob, the guy who used to tour guide around Europe with a lightsaber for all his group to be able to see him and follow him and find him, he would have gone all out, with the get up, with the gear, with the hat, with the satchel bag, So shout out to Star Wars Rob.
Good on you, Star Wars Rob.
He's someone we should definitely interview for the podcast.
Sounds like a classic dude.
He's gold. On top of Indiana Jones, quickly running through the list, I've got 7 Years in Tibet.
Oh, yeah.
Brad Pitt.
That's a really good film.
Great film. Goes and meets the Dalai Lama in his junior years up in the Himalaya mountains. Speaking of Everest, the film.
Oh, the film itself.
Everest.
Yeah.
Is a great film. About the Kiwi guy who has the hiking company taking clients up to Everest, and they get stuck up there in a storm and all the dramas that they go through. Not for the faint-hearted.
No, it's
pulls on the emotional heartstrings.
pretty edgy of seat stuff as well.
Go and throw it out there. Some people die. Okay, it's Mount Everest.
There's actually a good one I saw as well. I forgot about it. It's called The Lost City of Z.
I haven't heard of it. The Lost City of Z.
Yeah, it's about back in the day, like some explorers exploring through like the Amazon and trying to find, like coming across all these unknown tribes and trying to find the City of Gold, I believe it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good film.
Put it on the list.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
It only came out a couple of years
I'm
ago.
going to put that on my list. My to watch list.
I had it was one of those films I just trying to chucked it on with no expectations. Turned out to be really good.
Nice. I've also got here, finishing out the list, a film called Jumper. Heard of it? Seen of it?
Yeah. Is that the one with...
He goes through these time portholes.
Yeah.
And he can jump between locations.
Yeah.
The movie's so-so. The storyline is so-so. It's not horrible. It's not amazing. But he jumps through these time portholes and goes to lots of iconic locations around the world.
The scene is like sitting on the Sphinx's head in Egypt eating like a Subway or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So it's got this cool element of, I think when you watch it, you see these iconic locations, some of which you may have been to, but also the escapism and dreaming of being able to jump through those portholes and go to iconic locations all around the world.
At the drop of a hat. Yeah.
The split instance,
You'd
be like, that would be amazing. Imagine being able to do that, to go from, the Eiffel Tower to New York to the pyramids of Egypt in the click of a time
You just never
porthole.
stop. I would just never, ever stop. That'd be a really good
Imagine
superpower to have.
That would be a great travel superpower.
You could just cut out. You could save so much cash on flights right
Time, cash, delays,
no
messing
stupid
around.
airports.
Rounding out the list, I've got Midnight in Paris.
Not seen that.
Starring, what's his name again?
Oh, Owen Wilson.
Starring Owen Wilson.
Yep.
It's a little bit cheesy, but it does have some great elements to Paris in there.
Sounds all right.
And rounding out my list here is the film Lost in Translation.
Yeah, that's a film I haven't seen, but I've heard it's really good, and I love Bill Murray, and I don't even care what it's about. If he's in it, I'm keen to watch it.
Bill Murray's great in it. It's got his classic, dry, deadpan humour.
Amazing humour.
And even though it is often classed as a travel film, it doesn't travel anywhere. It takes place entirely in one hotel in Tokyo.
Okay.
But it does touch on the elements of being homesick and culture shock. Won't tell you what happens, but go and watch it to see. But that's a great film that's often chalked up.
I need to.
As a good travel film. Lost in Translation. Put it on your list.
Put it on your list.
Now, to finish it out, let's run through the list of peeps who were kind enough to write in and tell us some of their favorite travel films. So we've got Triss, another tour guide buddy of mine, wrote in and suggested the surf film Endless Summer.
Oh, yes.
Totally agree. Yes, Triss. Big shout out to Jamie Seymour, who suggested the film Taken.
Taken.
I haven't seen that film.
What?
Is that?
It's Liam Neeson, bro. That's the one where
the daughter's taken.
The daughter goes to France and then she gets kidnapped.
Okay, I have seen. And he goes on that rampage trying to.
He pretty much just kills everybody.
Is that a stitch up? Is he stitching us up by suggesting that one?
Look.
Is he trying to be funny? You trying to be funny, Jamie? He's a funny guy.
Oh, well, I mean, technically there's travel involved.
Okay.
And she goes to France, definitely.
I feel like Jamie's maybe throwing in a joke here.
Might be, yeah.
Jamie, thanks for your joke suggestion.
It doesn't really inspire me to go travelling, that's for sure.
Also,
definitely doesn't inspire me to kidnap Liam Neeson's daughter.
Jamie's brought up a great point here of travel horror films. One comes to mind. Hostel. Yes. Yeah. The film Hostel. How can we forget?
I did. Yeah.
Couple of amateur, I think they're American guys, want to go to Eastern Europe where they believe there's cheap booze, cheap drugs, cheap hostels, cheap travel, cheap girls, and the girls are all down for it with American guys and whatever. They go to the hostel, they party for a couple of days, have a great time. First 20 minutes are great. Lots of boobs, lots of girls with their tops off.
Yeah.
Fantastic film for the first 20 minutes. Okay.
And then?
It goes pretty pear-shaped.
After that?
Downhill. To the point where they're in a chair, naked, getting their Achilles heels slashed and getting bits chopped off, and it goes into full-blood horror movie.
It's, if you don't like horror, just give that one a miss.
The second 80% of the film, did not enjoy. Yeah. First 20%,
fantastic.
Big tick of approval.
Yeah.
Big tick of approval. Mark S. has written in and suggested Euro Trip. It's what every trip across Europe should be like. Thanks, Mark, and totally agree. Yes, as I mentioned, it is a film that we used to always watch on our Euro trips when I was guiding in that part of the world. Thanks very much to Lee, who wrote in and suggested Into the Wild, a great classic film, as Pete dived into. He secondly commented after that, Lee said, predictable, ? And I said, yes, it is predictable, but it must be included.
It's got to be.
It can't go without mention.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the most well-known, I'd say, travel films.
I've also got a couple of good comments here from Paul G. He mentioned Into the Wild, but he also went on and mentioned the film Almost Famous, which is a great...
Yeah.
Mostly about band and music, but the undercurrent is that they do travel in a bus and they go on that adventure. So it does have a lot of great travel elements to it.
Good soundtrack too.
Great soundtrack. Great soundtrack to Into the Wild as well.
Yeah, true.
Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, mostly acoustic.
Yeah,
great soundtrack. Really adds to that movie as well. So thanks, Paul, for suggesting Almost Famous. He also threw in a great comic travel one, Mr. Bean's Holiday.
Oh, how could we go past Mr.
That is another great. On the couch, maybe a bit hungover.
Yeah.
Just want to chill out for some good travel laughs. Mr. Bean's Holiday, great film.
What a classic.
Paul, giving up great suggestions. Paul's coming in with the gold.
Paul, you're the man. We're going to ask you more questions, dude.
We should interview Paul as an entire episode. He is a quirky, funny man, Mr. Paul. Paul Gent also then went on to suggest National Lampoon's.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, National Lampoon's Vacation.
I wonder could you class The Three Amigos as a travel film? They go to Mexico.
They go to Mexico. I mean, anything with Steve Martin in it.
I'm okay with that.
Is gold.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great. So thanks, Paul, for the National Lampoon suggestion. Classic travel.
Yeah.
Classic travel with Chevy Chase. I mean, you can't go wrong with some good Chevy Chase comedy.
He is a genius.
He also, Paul...
He's on fire, Paul.
Nothing else to do today. Paul also suggested the best exotic Marigold hotel.
Is that...
Where they revamped the hotel in India?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got more
quite an
senior
all-star
female cast, and a few others that come and visit the hotel.
It's like Judi Dench and...
is it Judi Dench? Yeah,
she's definitely
Judi Dench. Great film. I have seen it. Did enjoy it. Especially for anyone who's been to India.
Yeah.
Would sort of resonate with it and like seeing the images of India. So Paul, thanks for that one. Paul had more time today to also go on to suggest
Hectic Paul.
Borat.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting suggestion, Paul. I mean, technically he does travel.
He does.
From Kazakhstan to America and then goes around America. So
yeah.
on a technical note, could be classed as a travel film. Not much else to gain from the film in a travel perspective.
I don't think you're going to learn too much about travel from that.
Great for laughs.
Very good for laughs.
Great film. Do love that film.
There's a second one coming out too.
Is there? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
He is a funny man.
Paul and Borat together. Paul's proving himself to be
Paul's
just as
killing
funny
it.
and useful
Yeah.
as Borat himself. Ashley's put in some great comments here. She said she couldn't pick just one, not necessarily a travel film, but inspired me to travel to a destination, which she confirmed was Iran. And the movie she's referring to is Argo.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Fantastic film.
Yeah.
Again, not specifically a travel film, but
If it's inspired you.
if it's inspired you, then
Go
it
for
comes
it.
under, this is the kind of thing we're looking for.
Yeah,
The films don't have to necessarily be about travel,
No,
but if they motivate you,
Yeah.
then absolutely, it's on the list. Ashley, thanks for that great suggestion. She also suggested Lost in Translation,
Okay.
which we touched on.
Yeah.
Great film. Ashley also suggests Priscilla.
That is a cult classic.
Fantastic film.
I mean, it's all about the outback of Australia, isn't it? So, and they're in a bus traveling around.
They go on an adventure, they're traveling around. I mean, that image of the flowing silver outfit off
Yeah,
the top
on
of the
top of the
bus,
bus.
if that doesn't scream travel, I don't know what does.
Nah, no, right. I mean, I think surely every single Australian has seen that film.
If you haven't seen the film Priscilla, Australian or not,
Yeah, check it out.
get on
'Cause
top of
it's a
that
good
one.
film.
Big shout out to Elise, who suggested the Lizzie Mcguire film.
The Lizzie Mcguire.
The Lizzie
film.
Mcguire film.
What the hell's that?
I don't think I've seen it. I know Lizzie Mcguire was, I think it's a made up name for another actor. That wasn't,
Was it?
Hannah Montana's something different to the Lizzie Mcguire.
Hannah Montana's Miley Cyrus.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's Miley Cyrus is the actor
Yeah.
who plays,
Hannah Montana.
but I think in this movie she also plays Lizzie Mcguire.
Really?
I think so. I could be wrong.
Surely she couldn't be Hannah Montana and Lizzie McGuire.
I think it was after the Hannah Montana era, before the coming of age,
Okay.
crazy,
Yeah, right. Okay.
skimpy
The Miley Cyrus we have
of
today.
Yeah. Let's check on that. We'll check on that.
I'm going to have a look.
Get on that one. Ask Dr. Google, the
I
Lizzie McGuire movie. She said, for Italy in particular, nostalgic for people of certain generations, but a best of Rome fantasy film that is fun to quote whilst running around the Rome walking tours.
Okay.
So thanks, Elise, for suggesting the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Oh, it's Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff. There we go. We were close, but so far
While,
off.
yeah. I don't think Hilary
Similar
Duff's-
genre of
I don't think
white,
she's-
plain
she's-
American.
She's taken the, she's kept that going, I think, old Hilary Duff. She's not gone the Miley Cyrus road.
Not
of
gone down the Miley Cyrus
going a bit cuckoo.
rabbit hole. Okay. So thanks Elise,
for
for
that.
suggesting the Lizzie McGuire movie. Can confirm it's Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff.
Not what's her name? Miley Cyrus.
Mad Dog.
That's how much I don't care about her.
You
Paul G's
don't.
also written in with another suggestion.
Didn't have much to do today, did you, Paul?
No, Paul is obviously on an RDO today. Paul suggests the In-Betweeners 2 movie,
Oh, is
where
that
they
what
visit
go to?
Australia.
Oh, of course.
Great film.
The first one they go to Mallorca or
Mayorga or Magaluf, one of those
Shagaloof is like
horrible
it's
British islands.
very-
Yeah, but the In-Betweeners 2 movie, I did like it. When they come to Australia, it's
I haven't
got some
seen it.
funny scenes. You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, check it out.
Yeah,
Very
well.
funny scenes. For anyone who's been to Australia or is Australian, you'll enjoy that a little bit more because you'll get some of the gags and the locations and the stereotypes
The
and the
piss
jokes
takes,
that they
yeah.
play on. Yeah. They go to Byron Bay and they stay in the iconic Arts Factory hostel,
Okay.
which is known for being a bit of a hippie, weed smoking, kind of discover your inner wannabe hippie, yogi type place. They say stay a night and forget a week. Something like that. That's what people say. Yeah, you go for a night and a week later you wonder where you've been.
What happened?
Yeah, what happened indeed. We've also got my great French friend, Etienne, has written in and suggested The Beach.
Ah, yes.
Pete went on a deep dive into that film, a great film. He says, it's the first travel movie I ever saw. The music is crazy good.
Music is good.
Although it's a movie with a story, blah, 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 it shows well how connections can be done. How you can be quickly thrown back to your unsecurity, uncomfort of traveling, along with, although you want to, okay, anyway, he's French, he's all over the place. Thanks, Etienne.
Thank you, Etienne.
Shout out to Matt Billy Stewart, living in Vancouver, Canada. He suggested the Motorcycle Diaries.
Is that Ewan McGregor?
That is another motorcycle one. They go the long way down and then they do the long way round.
Oh, okay.
It is a Motorcycle Diaries, but that's not the title.
Okay.
The Motorcycle Diaries I have not seen, but thanks for the suggestion, Matt. He says it's soon to be Barbarian Days. He says it's my favorite travel book and it's getting made into a movie. So maybe it's not a movie yet.
Oh, okay. Well.
So maybe Matt is suggesting Motorcycle Diaries, the written version, was great and he loved it and he's excited for the soon to be made movie based on the diaries, which will be called, the movie will be called Barbarian Days.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's how I'm interpreting his comment. Okay. So let's look out for that one. One of our old drivers on the tour circuit back in the good old days suggests the film The Castle. The Australian film The Castle. He says, not because it's got anything to do with travel, but because you used to play it every single trip on the way into Camping Albadoro in Venice, which was a campsite, like a holiday park where we used to stay at. The reason being that the campsite was right next to the airport.
Oh, okay. Which is so handy.
Which is so handy. And then he said, the serenity. A man's home is his castle. For anyone who has seen the film, you'll understand the joke there.
For anyone who's not Australian and doesn't know Australian culture, you'll probably not understand that film. But if you do and you haven't seen it, get around it. It's really got nothing to do with travel at all, but damn, it's a great film. A
lot of other people have got around it, just putting down castle quotes.
Yeah.
You're dreaming. Dad radar. This is going straight to the pool room.
We live right next to the airport, which if we ever went anywhere would be so handy.
We got some more. Katie Montgomery has suggested Into the Wild. Thanks, Katie. Judes has commented, FYI, everyone, Alan's podcast is called Microphones and Micro Penises.
Oh. How does he know? I mean, wait. Nah.
How does she know? Yeah, sometimes she does get confused for a man. She has a very husky voice in Big Adam's Apple. Thanks, Jude Douglas. Erin W. said, can't go past the beach. Scott B. has mentioned National Lampoon's Family Vacation, the original 80s one, not the new shit one. We agree, Scott. And Steve M. has suggested the movie called 21. Used to play it on the way into Nice, getting people super revved up for their sad amount of time in Monaco. 21, I guess that's about blackjack and gambling, going to the casino in Monte Carlo.
So. Yeah, if you're going to Monte Carlo.
Haven't seen that one, but thanks, Steve, for the suggestion. Last but not least, Michael James has suggested A Map for Saturday.
Never heard of that.
Haven't seen it. Have heard great reviews about it. It is on my to-watch list.
Oh, okay.
So put it on yours, people.
Wow.
A Map for Saturday. Thanks, Michael James.
Awesome.
I think that can round it out. There is a shit ton of suggestions for great travel movies and why. We hope people have enjoyed that.
There's no better time to be checking out travel films and getting yourself inspired than right now while we are stuck at home and not able to live our dreams. So hopefully this will get you excited and not upset that you can't at the moment. Just got to hang out that bit longer.
Indeed, yep. Hang in there, people. Get ready for when the floodgates open and we're allowed to travel again. And in the meantime, do yourself a favor and check
out some of those films, or all of them.
Check them all out, watch them twice. And write in, let us know your favorites. Let us know what ones.
Tell us if you think we're talking shit and they were terrible.
Pete, it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, mate.
Let's go watch a movie, shall we?
Yeah, I reckon that's a good idea.
It's movie time.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Check you next time.
Take it easy.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Big thank you goes out to our good friend Dave Petrie of Off the Wall Sounds, who has been a huge help, and Dave kindly created our theme tune, as well as worked on the sound design and mixing of this episode. You can find Dave at his website, offworldsounds.com, and on the gram at offworld_sounds. Thanks, Dave.